Hello, it's Jim Hutchins for the Jerusalem Connection Truth Report for this week. There's a passage in the book of Acts that's generated a lot of controversy in these days concerning the end times. I want to read it to you. It's very brief. Acts chapter 3, verse 21. Even Jesus, Yeshua, must remain in heaven. He must remain in heaven until the time comes for God to restore everything, as he promised long ago through his holy prophets. God is going to restore, but Jesus must remain in heaven until it's time for God to restore. Now, that passage has led many to believe that the third temple that we hear so much about will be restored. Will be the fulfillment of that prophecy, actually. But is that the case? I don't think so. I want to quote from a leader of the Messiah's Mandate, Ron Cantor, leads a ministry in Israel. And he asked, is the third temple a part of that restoration? And his answer, and I agree with it wholeheartedly, simply put, no, it is not. The third temple is absolutely a part of end-time prophecy, but that does not make it a blessing. The Antichrist is part of the end-time prophecy. And that prophecy with regard to the Antichrist is linked to the temple that exists at that time. I want to read it to you, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Verse 3 says, don't let anyone deceive you. Deception will prevail, be prevalent in the end times. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day, called the day of Yahweh, will come until the rebellion occurs and a man of lawlessness, the Antichrist, is revealed. A man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God and is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple. That means a temple will exist. Sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. And many will be deceived. Many Jews will be deceived. As a matter of fact, the scriptures refer to it as a time in Ezekiel 28, or Isaiah 28, when many Jews will make a covenant of death. Ezekiel 28, verse 15, you boast, God says. You boast, we've entered into a covenant with death. With the grave, we've made an agreement. In verse 18, your covenant with death will be annulled. God will annul it. Your agreement with the grave will not stand. So this is very significant. There will be a master of deception that presents himself as God, and many will follow him. Many Jews will follow him to their detriment. A covenant of death. Will we recognize the real temple? Yes, there will be another temple. Ezekiel, the last chapters of Ezekiel speak of the temple that the Messiah will institute. And he, being the already sacrifice, will be fully recognized by the world at that time. But in the meantime, there is a temple. And God tells us who that temple is, what that temple is. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 16, Do you know that you yourselves, and these are followers of Jesus, do you know that you yourselves are God's temple? The temple of God today are the believers in Yeshua, and that God's Spirit lives in you. If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple today. The third temple that will be built is the temple of the Antichrist. We are the temple of God today and will be until Yeshua comes and establishes his own temple once again. And that is the truth.